Here is our structural model showing the building collapsing, which matches quite well with the video of the event.
It's amazing.
Amazing, incredible, pick your word.
Essentially, in less than 7 seconds, Tower 7 came down upon itself.
Building number 7 descended in free fall for the first 100 feet.
It's just like taking your car keys out and just dropping them. That's how fast the building came down, for over 100 feet. And the only way you can get that is when there's zero resistance. And so what we're looking at is a building just coming straight down, falling right through itself with zero resistance. Buildings don't have zero resistance, which is why you feel comfortable walking into a building.
A free fall time would be an object that has no structural components below it.
This building had 40,000 tons of structural steel in its structural system, and that is intended to keep it from going anywhere.
NIST is telling us that the building below it ceased to exist for the first few seconds of the collapse of the building. Well, things in physics just don't cease to exist and cease to resist the forces that are on them. The building didn't disappear so the building can fall for 100 feet at free fall speed. That's impossible. That's a violation of the fundamental law of physics that says that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction.
If floors fall, they tend to fall and are braced by the floor directly beneath it. And there's some delay there.
Because of redundancy, because of all the other columns in the building that were not affected.
NIST was stumped for years. Now, they told us in 2006, their lead investigator, Shyam Sunder, told New York Magazine that he didn't know. He's had trouble getting a handle on Building 7. There's a problem here because the new Building 7, which is taller, built in the same site, was completed in 2006. You would think they would want to know what happened to the first one. And 2 years later, they said they did know. They said it's no longer a mystery. The same man, Shyam Sunder, the lead investigator.
What we found was that uncontrolled building fires, similar to those we have seen in other tall buildings, caused an extraordinary event. The collapse of World Trade Center 7 was primarily due to fires.
According to NIST, the collapse was triggered by the failure of one specific column, number 79, located in the northeastern section of the building.
So you look at the floors failing here, and eventually this column 79 is going to buckle, it fails, and then the entire vertical progression takes place. This is the first time that we're aware of that a building over 15 stories tall has collapsed primarily due to fire.
NIST blamed thermal expansion as the phenomenon that caused the collapse, which was also an absolute first in history.
Our study has identified thermal expansion as a new phenomenon that can cause the collapse of a structure. For the first time, we have shown that fire can induce a progressive collapse.
It looked like the perfect controlled demolition. It featured the sudden onset of the collapse, the rapid acceleration towards the ground, the symmetrical descent of the structure, and it even appeared to have started the collapse from the bottom, as most controlled demolitions do.
I was real close to Building 7 when it fell down, and running away from that sucked. That's one of the things that I live with all the time, and I don't know, but that didn't sound like just a building falling down to me while I was running away from it. There's a lot of eyewitness testimony down there hearing explosions. I didn't see any reason for that building to fall down the way it did, and a lot of guys should be saying the same thing.
Well, me and Mr. Hesh, the corporation counsel, were on the 23rd floor. I told him we got to get out of here. We started walking down the stairs. We made it to the 8th floor. Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor.
But Tony, let me start with you. You're an engineer. We've all seen old, obsolete buildings and public housing in other places outlive their usefulness, being demolished by the professionals who can actually collapse a building right in its own footprint. That's what it looks like happened to Building 7. Do you believe that's what happened?
Yes, I do believe that's what happened.
And why do you think they're lying about it?
I don't really know all the details of why they're lying about it. I can't read their minds. All I can say is, scientifically, it's impossible for fire to have done what we see.
So what are you suggesting brought it down, Tony?
I'm suggesting there was some form of demolition devices in that building.
You want to call your mother or something?
You gotta get back. You know that. You gotta get back.
All right? Don't worry about me. You need to make calls right now.
Well, no, there's number 7 coming down. When you think that part of the component of news coverage around the country every year is the excitement and the fun that people get watching an old building being demolished, and they wire it very carefully for days, and it's a very careful operation.
I got it. You got it?
Wolkenkrabber van 47 verdiepingen naast de Twin Towers. Op 11 september 2001 heeft er brand gewoed, maar er is nooit een vliegtuig ingevlogen. Toch is ook dit gebouw op 11 september ingestort. Deze gebeurtenis heeft nooit veel aandacht gekregen en ook Denny Jowenko heeft er nooit van gehoord. Zijn reactie op de beelden die we laten zien is onbevangen.
Zie je vanaf boven gaan? Nee, je gaat vanaf onder.
Die gaat vanaf onder, ja.
Toch?
Ja.
Ze hebben gewoon kolommen weggeblazen. Er is nagesprongen.
World Trade Center 7 collapsed because of fires fueled by office furnishings.
Well, what do you think?
Dus dit is controlled demolition.
Zeker weten.
Zeker weten. Er is nagesprongen. Dit is in opdracht gebeurd. Dit heeft een team gedaan van experts.
It's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
Did they actually use the word brought down, and who was it that was telling you this?
The fire department, and they did use the word. We're going to have to bring it down.
You heard explosions, like boom. It's like a distinct sound. It's not like when in compression, like boom, 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 like floors that were dropping and collapsing. This was boom, and like you felt a rumble in the ground, like almost like you wanted to grab onto something. That, to me, I knew that was an explosion.
Turned around, we were shocked to see that the building was, it looked like there was a shock wave ripping through the building, and the windows all busted out, and it was horrifying. And then, about a second later, the bottom floor caves out, and the building followed after that, and we saw the building crash down all the way to the ground.
Well, in 2004, I used to watch the History Channel on Sunday mornings. They had a show on called History Center that I liked, and there was a show on before that called History's Business at 8:30 to 9. So Larry Silverstein was on this show, History's Business, and Larry was the owner of World Trade Center 7, who had taken over the tower complex. He talked about 9/11. At the end, the host said to Larry, very matter-of-factly, he asked him a question. He says, "What happened to 7?" And I had been perplexed about it. Larry very matter-of-factly said, Building 7 was a controlled demolition, using those words. I wasn't suspicious. It was like a head slap moment for me. I said, oh, that makes sense. And the implication, I think he even talked about, is so damaged, and for safety reasons, they took it down.
And he actually, Larry Silverstein himself, you say, used the words controlled demolition.
I would swear in a courtroom that's what he said, yes.
Is this the quote where he says that the decision was made to pull it?
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
No, that was on Frontline in September 2002. This had to be 2004. Well, when he said that, and, I said, oh, that made sense. I wasn't asking, when would there have been a chance to set the charges or anything? I didn't think about that. I thought they could do it. And by the way, when I started to realize that there was something wrong, I contacted the History Channel. Every show for years, they would say, if you want this show on DVD or CD or DVD or VHS, just call this number or go to this website. Well, I called them about that show, and I asked about it, and they told me that series was not available to the public. The show certainly existed. I saw it. I'm not making this up. I have no reason to make it up. I'm a 58-year-old engineer. It doesn't behoove me to do that.
We don't even know whether this was something that was engineered for safety reasons or it just happened as a consequence of the two collisions this morning.
I worked for Controlled Demolition Incorporated, CDI, the top-rated explosive demolition firm in the world. What I saw, it was a classic implosion. The center of the core, the penthouse area, starts to move first, and then the building follows along with it.
It did not collapse from explosives.
Big explosion.
Destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
You heard explosions.
There's a lot of eyewitness testimony down there hearing explosions.
And I turned in time to see what looked like a skyscraper implosion. Looked like it had been done by a demolition crew. The whole thing just collapsing down on itself.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion.
Het is vakwerk, zonder meer. We weten heel goed wat ze doen, die jongens.
Office furnishings.
Keep your eye on that building. It'll be coming down.
Thermal expansion.
Building is about to blow up. Moving back.
Floor failures.
We are walking back. There's a building about to blow up.
World Trade Center 7 collapsed because of fires.
My name is Leroy Halsey. I'm a forensic engineer and a professor at the University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Steel is a very fire-resistant material.
When a structure fails, my job is to figure out why. Over the next year, with a team of PhD students, I will be rebuilding World Trade Center Building 7.
How does floor 13 respond with respect to 12?
Using the same drawings that were used to build it originally, we will reconstruct it virtually. Our goal is to figure out why it collapsed late in the afternoon on September 11, 2001, even though it was not hit by an airplane. The investigation conducted by the National Institute of Standards and Technology concluded
What we found was that uncontrolled building fires caused an extraordinary event. The collapse of World Trade Center 7 was primarily due to fires.
Our investigation will evaluate the probability that this was the cause of the collapse. We are making this study open and transparent. Whether you are a physicist, engineer, architect, fire expert, or a specialist in another field, or just an ordinary citizen, we want your participation. We are making all of our data available online. Every aspect of our process regarding the modeling will be shared. And we will be giving regular updates from the lab as we continue our work. Join us in getting to the bottom of why World Trade Center 7 collapsed on September 11th, 2001.
There's a very elegant and straightforward to understand method that causes this building to come down, and that's the issue of thermal expansion. It's very straightforward, it's based on sound science, and it is consistent with all the observations we have, and it's consistent with the fact that the fires were on the lower floors of the building.
But it had never happened before, right?
But the physics is consistent, it's sound, it's been analyzed, and we have the results. And we are very comfortable with our findings.
I just want to share with you that our conclusion is that did Building 7 collapse under fire? And we did not find that that was the case. We can't find any justification that could have come down by fire. So that contradicts the findings by the NIST report, and we're in the process right now of looking at progressive collapses. We're taking out the columns. We're now taking out the columns at floor 8. What I found is that quite interesting, which is no big surprise. The building is not coming that straight down. It's actually leaning to the west as it's coming down. So remember, the building is not symmetrical, nor is it built even to have symmetrical behavior. It's actually built stiffer on one side than it is on the other. So it's going to have to be forced to come straight down. Even a symmetrical structure, for God's sake, isn't built perfectly. So nothing is ever going to come straight down unless you force it to do that.
You didn't hear anything about the World Trade Center 7. Not for a long time.
And we'd never experienced, prior to that day, a steel frame building collapsing due to fire. It just didn't happen.
There was no excuse for rushing to remove debris from Building 7. There was quick decisions made about taking that evidence away. They only saved one piece of steel, and that piece of steel suffered some extreme temperatures.
Fire cannot cause that. There are other chemicals that were involved.
We did not find any evidence that explosives were used in the collapse of Building 7.
They ignored evidence, and it wasn't because they didn't know about it.
They seemed to focus on the solution right from the very beginning and ignore all evidence that would have led them in any other direction. There was just this silence in the academic world about this subject. So we began looking around for someone that would be willing to undertake such a study. We ran across Professor Halsey up at the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. He was very scientific about the way he approached this whole problem.
He wants to look at things from a very rational perspective, blocking all the noise out, which is really what is needed in this case.
If there is controversy, it means that not everyone's satisfied with the answer. If we can change that, if we can give the public and the engineers an understanding of truly what did happen, it's worth it to me to be able to do that work.